Welcome to a Drexel University English Language Center presentation on grammar and sentence structure. My name is Bill Albertson, and today I am going to talk about complex sentences with adverb clauses. Before we begin, you might find it easier to hear this presentation if you use headphones. In addition, find the video pause button and use it whenever you need more time to read the slides. By the end of this module, you should be able to identify complex sentences, identify independent and dependent clauses, identify adverb clauses in complex sentences, and correctly punctuate complex sentences with adverb clauses. You'll remember that in the last module, we talked about compound sentences, which have two independent clauses joined by a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Complex sentences, on the other hand, have one independent clause and one dependent clause. A dependent clause is a group of words with a subject and a verb that cannot be in a sentence all by itself. Complex sentences have two subjects and two verbs, and they may have a comma depending on the type of dependent clause and its location in the sentence. There are three types of dependent clauses in English. We have adverb clauses, adjective clauses, and noun clauses. In this module, we'll take a closer look at adverb clauses. In the next two modules, we'll look at adjective clauses and noun clauses. Now, let's take a closer look at adverb clauses. Adverb clauses start with a subordinator, and they have a comma after them if the independent clause comes after the adverb clause. If the adverb clause comes second in the sentence, that's to say, after the independent clause, we do not use a comma. What is a subordinator? A subordinator is a small word or phrase that shows how, when, or why something happened. Here's a list of some of the most common subordinators in English. There are many more, and you may find a longer list by searching for subordinators in Google or your favorite search engine. Let's look at some examples of sentences with adverb clauses in them. First, we have Bobby went to the store because he needed milk. Here, Bobby went to the store is the independent clause. Because he needed milk is a dependent clause. We could say Bobby went to the store as a simple sentence, but we cannot say because he needed milk as a simple sentence. Because he needed milk is not a complete thought and therefore cannot exist on its own. Any clause that starts with a subordinator cannot exist on its own. If you see a subordinator, you know that you're looking at a dependent clause. This sentence does not have a comma because the independent clause comes first, and the subordinator is in the middle of the sentence. Of course, we could flip the sentence around and write it in the opposite direction. Because Bobby needed milk, he went to the store. In this case, we have the dependent clause first, followed by the independent clause. In this case, we do have a comma, because the subordinator is at the beginning of the sentence, and the dependent clause comes before the independent clause. In our next sentence, we have Bobby goes to karaoke if he wants to sing. Bobby goes to karaoke is the independent clause. If he wants to sing is the dependent clause. We know that we cannot say if he wants to sing by itself as its own simple sentence because it's an incomplete thought. In this case, again, the independent clause comes first, so we do not have a comma. Just like in the example before, we can write this in the opposite direction and write, if Bobby wants to sing, he goes to karaoke. In this case, we have the dependent clause first, the independent clause second, and we have a comma. Now, let's practice. For this exercise, I would like you to combine these two simple sentences together using the subordinator in parentheses. Pause the video while you write your answers on a separate sheet of paper. Press the play button when you are finished to see the correct answers. Okay, now let's go over the answers. In the first example, we have Rita plays the piano well, Rita always practices. We have two ways that we can put these sentences together with the subordinator because. First, we have Rita plays the piano well because she always practices. We could also write, because Rita always practices, she plays the piano well. Notice that in the first sentence, I have the independent clause first, so I don't have a comma. But in the second sentence, I have the dependent clause first, so I do use a comma. Also, notice that in the second clause, I use the pronoun she so that I don't repeat the same noun. In the second example, we have Linda studied hard, Linda failed the test. The two ways that we can put these sentences together with although are Linda failed the test although she studied hard, and although Linda studied hard, she failed the test. Notice that in the first sentence, the independent clause comes first, so we have no comma, and in the second sentence, the dependent clause comes first, so we do have a comma. For the third example, we have Andy came home, Andy's dog licked his face. To put these sentences together with as soon as, we could write, Andy's dog licked his face as soon as he came home, or as soon as Andy came home, his dog licked his face. As in the previous two examples, the first sentence does not have a comma because the independent clause comes first, and the second sentence has a comma because the dependent clause comes first. This concludes our presentation on complex sentences with adverb clauses. In the next module, we will discuss complex sentences with adjective clauses. Remember, if you need additional help, you can always schedule a language support tutoring appointment through the Drexel ELC at the link listed here. Thanks for watching.